She thought their marriage was unbreakable until she saw the text that shattered everything. What would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed you in the most intimate way? This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about heartbreak, about choices, and about whether love can ever survive betrayal. Today, you'll hear Sarah's story, raw, honest, and full of painful truths. Stay with me, because this one might just change the way you see trust, love, and forgiveness. The rain was relentless that evening, hammering the windows of our suburban home like it was trying to break through. I sat on the couch, a glass of untouched wine trembling in my hand, staring at the text message on my phone. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but the words burned into my retina. "Your husband is cheating on you. Ask him about Lisa." I don't know how long I sat there, the phone screen dimming as the storm roared outside. My husband, David, was upstairs, probably scrolling through his tablet, oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated in my world. We'd been married for 12 years, built a life together. 2 kids, a mortgage, a dog named Rusty, and a rhythm of quiet, predictable days. I thought I knew him. I thought I knew us. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I found out about David's affair, how it shattered me, and why, against every instinct screaming in my chest, I chose to forgive him. The discovery. It started with that text, anonymous and cruel in its simplicity. I didn't want to believe it. David was dependable, the kind of man who remembered to take out the trash and kissed me on the forehead every night before bed. But the message gnawed at me, a splinter I couldn't ignore. I waited until the kids, Emma 9 and Noah 6, were asleep before confronting him. "David," I said, my voice steady, despite the tremor in my hands. He looked up from his tablet, his brown eyes soft, unsuspecting. "Who's Lisa?" The shift was subtle but unmistakable. His jaw tightened and his fingers froze on the screen. "Lisa?" he repeated like he was buying time. "She's just someone from work. Why?" I held up my phone, the text glowing like an accusation. "This came through tonight. Care to explain?" He read it, and I watched the color drain from his face. For a moment, I thought he'd deny it, spin some story about a misunderstanding. But then his shoulders slumped, and he whispered, "I'm so sorry, Sarah." The details came out in halting, painful fragments. Lisa was a coworker, a project manager in his department. It started innocently. Late nights at the office, shared frustrations over deadlines. Then came the drinks after work, the lingering conversations, the moment it crossed the line. It had been going on for 3 months, 3 months of lies, of him coming home to me, kissing our kids goodnight while carrying this secret. "Did you love her?" I asked, my voice cracking. "No," he said quickly, his eyes pleading. "It wasn't about love. It was, I don't know, a mistake. A stupid, selfish mistake." I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him feel the weight of the betrayal that was crushing me. But all I could manage was, "Get out." He didn't argue. He packed a bag and left, the rain swallowing the sound of his car pulling away. I sat there until dawn, replaying every moment of our marriage, searching for the cracks that missed. The aftermath were a blur of survival. I kept it together for Emma and Noah, plastering on a smile as I made their lunches and drove them to soccer practice. But at night, when the house was quiet, the pain was suffocating. I'd lie awake, imagining David with her, wondering what she had that I didn't. Was she prettier? Funnier? Did she make him feel something I couldn't? I told my best friend, Mia, over coffee one morning. Her eyes widened, then narrowed with indignation. "You're not seriously considering staying with him, are you? He broke your trust, Sarah. You deserve better." I nodded, because part of me agreed, but another part, the part that remembered David teaching Emma to ride a bike, or the way he'd hold Noah when he had nightmares, couldn't let go. I wasn't ready to end our marriage, but I didn't know how to move forward either. David called every day, leaving voicemails when I didn't answer. "I'm staying at a hotel. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'll do anything to fix this." I ignored him at first, but the kids started asking questions. "Where's Daddy?" Noah would say, his little face crumpling. I couldn't keep him away forever. After 3 weeks, I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop. He looked awful, unshaven, eyes red, like he hadn't slept in days. "I ended it with her," he said before I could speak. I told her it was a mistake, and I quit the project we were working on. "I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." I wanted to believe him, but the hurt was too raw. "Why, David?" I asked. "What was missing? Was I not enough?" He shook his head, tears in his eyes. "It wasn't about you. It was me. I was stressed, feeling stuck, and I let myself get pulled into something I shouldn't have. You're everything, Sarah. I know I don't deserve you, but I'm begging for a chance to prove I can be better." I didn't give him an answer that day. I needed time, space to process. But his words lingered, a flicker of hope in the darkness. The weeks dragged on, and I oscillated between rage and grief. David moved into a small apartment nearby, respecting my need for space, but never straying far. He showed up for the kids' events, Emma's soccer games, Noah's school play, always on the sidelines, never pushing to be closer than I allowed. He'd text me updates. "I started therapy today. I want to understand why I did this." Or, "I'm reading a book on rebuilding trust. Can we talk about it sometime?" I didn't respond, but I read every message. Mia kept pushing me to leave him. "He's not worth it, Sarah. You're strong enough to do this on your own." But strength wasn't the issue. It was love. Not just for David, but for the family we'd built. Emma's laughter, Noah's hugs, the quiet evenings we used to spend playing board games. Could I throw that away? Could I rebuild it without him? One night, I agreed to couples counseling. I didn't tell Mia. She'd call it a mistake. But I needed answers, even if they hurt. The therapist, Dr. Ellis, was a calm woman with a knack for asking questions that cut to the bone. In our first session, she asked David, "What did the affair give you that your marriage didn't?" He hesitated, his hands twisting in his lap. It wasn't about Sarah or the marriage. It was an escape. Work was killing me, and I felt like I was failing everyone. Lisa was there, and she didn't expect anything from me. It was easy. Easy? I snapped. You think our life is supposed to be easy? No, he said quickly. That's not what I meant. I mean, I felt like I could be someone else for a while, someone who wasn't screwing up. But I know now it was a fantasy, and it hurt the one who matters most. Dr. Ellis turned to me. Sarah, what do you need to feel safe again? I didn't know. Safety felt like a foreign concept. But I said, I need to know it won't happen again. I need to trust him, but I don't know how. She nodded. Trust is rebuilt through consistency, transparency, and time. David, are you prepared to be an open book? He nodded eagerly. Anything she needs. My phone, my emails, my schedule, whatever it takes. It sounded good, but words were cheap. I wanted proof, and I told him so. That's when he suggested a post-nuptial agreement. If I ever do anything like this again, you get everything. The house, the savings, all of it. I want you to know I'm serious. I was stunned. It was a bold move. Legally binding himself to consequences. But it also felt cold, like reducing our marriage to a contract. I don't want your money, David, I said. I want my husband back. He broke down then, sobbing in a way I'd never seen. I'm trying, Sarah. I'm trying so hard to be him again. Small steps forward. The post-nup was drawn up, but I didn't sign it right away. It sat on my desk, a symbol of his commitment, but also a reminder of his betrayal. Instead, we focused on small steps. David started coming over for family dinners, sitting across from me like a guest in his own home. The kids were thrilled, oblivious to the tension. Noah would climb into his lap, and Emma would show him her drawings, and I'd watch, searching for the man I fell in love with. One evening, after the kids were in bed, we sat on the couch with a bottle of wine. It was the first time we'd been alone together, without a therapist or kids as a buffer. I miss you, he said softly. Not just being here, but you. The way we used to laugh. The way you'd call me out when I was being an idiot. I wanted to lash out, to remind him how he destroyed that. But instead, I said, I miss that too. But I'm scared, David. Every time I look at you, I see her. He nodded, his eyes glistening. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making that image go away if you'll let me. That night, he slept on the couch. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. Months passed, and we fell into a rhythm. Counseling continued, and David kept his promises. Open phone, open emails, no late nights at work. He wrote me letters, not asking for forgiveness, but sharing his therapy insights, his regrets, his hopes. One letter read, I realized I was chasing a version of myself I thought I'd lost, but I was wrong. You and my kids are the best parts of me. I'll never stop trying to deserve you. I started to see glimpses of the old David, the one who'd dance with me in the kitchen, who'd leave sticky notes with terrible jokes on my coffee mug. But I was different too. The affair had forced me to confront my own insecurities, my tendency to bury my needs for the sake of harmony. I started therapy on my own, learning to voice my anger, my fear, my love. One day at a soccer game, Emma scored a goal, and David and I cheered together, our hands brushing. For a moment, it felt like before. He looked at me hopeful, and I didn't pull away. That night, I signed the postnup, not because I wanted his money, but because it was his way of showing he'd never hide again. Facing the past. The next hurdle came unexpectedly. I was at the grocery store, loading avocados into my cart, when I saw her, Lisa. I didn't know her face, but I knew her name, and the name tag pinned to her blouse confirmed it. She was a cashier now, apparently no longer at David's firm. She was pretty, in a quiet way, with dark hair and a tired smile. Nothing about her screamed homewrecker, and that made it worse. I froze, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to confront her, to demand why she thought she could step into my life. But another part, the part that had spent months in therapy learning to own my emotions, knew it wouldn't help. She wasn't the problem. David's choices were. I left the store without checking out, my hands shaking as I called Mia. "I saw her," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't know what to do." "Come over," Mia said. "Now." At her apartment, over glasses of cheap Merlot, I poured out the story. Mia was furious on my behalf. "You should have said something to her. She doesn't get to just walk away scot-free." "What good would it do?" I asked. "Yelling at her won't undo it, and honestly, I'm tired of being angry." Mia raised an eyebrow. "So what? You're just going to let it go? Sarah, you're stronger than that." "I'm not letting it go," I said. "I'm choosing not to let it define me. I want my life back, Mia. Not the one I had before, but something better." She softened, reaching for my hand. "I just don't want you to settle for less than you deserve." "I'm not," I said, and for the first time, I believed it. That night, I told David about seeing Lisa. I expected him to panic, but he just listened, his face tight with guilt. "Do you want me to do anything? I'll go to the store, talk to her, make sure she stays away." "No," I interrupted. "This isn't about her. It's about us. I need to know you're all in, David. No more secrets, no more escapes." "I am," he said, taking my hands. "I swear, Sarah, I'm all in." Rebuilding brick by brick. Spring turned to summer, and we started to find a new normal. David moved back into our bedroom, a tentative step that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The first night, we lay side by side, not touching, the silence heavy with unspoken fears. But over time, the distance shrank. A brush of fingers, a shared laugh. A morning when he pulled me close and I didn't pull away. We kept up with counseling, and Dr. Ellis pushed us to be honest, even when it hurt. One session, she asked me, "Sarah, what does forgiveness look like to you?" I thought for a long time. "It's not pretending it didn't happen," I said. "It's choosing to love him anyway, knowing he's flawed, knowing I'm flawed too. It's believing we can be better together." David reached for my hand, and I let him hold it. We started doing things as a family again. Picnics, movie nights, a trip to the beach where Noah built a sandcastle and Emma chased seagulls. David was present in a way he hadn't been before, not just physically, but emotionally. He listened when I talked, asked about my day, noticed when I was struggling. It wasn't perfect, Some days I'd catch myself wondering if I'd made the right choice, but it was real. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, David said, "I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself, but I'm so grateful you're giving me a chance." I looked at him, the man I'd loved for over a decade, the man who'd broken my heart and was fighting to put it back together. "I'm not doing it just for you," I said. "I'm doing it for me too. I want to be whole again." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I love you, Sarah, more than I can ever say." "I know," I said, and I meant it. A test of faith. Summer faded into fall, and the crisp air brought a sense of renewal. Our house felt fuller again, with David's presence no longer a guest's, but a partner's. He was trying. God, was he trying. He'd taken up cooking, surprising us with lopsided pancakes on weekends, and he'd started a ritual of reading to Noah every night, his voice soft and steady as he brought stories to life. Emma, once guarded, began to soften, asking him to help with her science project, a model of the solar system that ended up with glitter all over the dining room table. But trust, I learned, isn't linear. Some days I'd catch myself watching David too closely, analyzing his tone when he answered a call or the way he typed on his laptop. I hated that part of me, the suspicious shadow that lingered despite his efforts. Dr. Ellis called it normal trauma response, but it felt like a betrayal of my own progress. The test came in October, during a school fundraiser. David volunteered to help at Emma's booth, selling baked goods to raise money for new library books. I was there too, juggling Noah's sticky hands and a clipboard of parent signups. The event was crowded, a swirl of laughter and chatter, when I saw her again, Lisa. She was across the gymnasium, holding a toddler's hand, her face unreadable as she scanned the booths. My stomach dropped. I hadn't told David about seeing her at the grocery store months ago, not wanting to reopen that wound. But now she was, in our space, where my kids were, where we were trying to heal. I felt a surge of anger, not just at her, but at the universe for throwing this at me. David was at the booth handing a brownie to a parent when he glanced up and froze. His eyes met mine, and I knew he'd seen her too. For a moment, time stopped. I waited, my heart pounding, for what he'd do. He excused himself from the booth and walked straight to me, his face pale but resolute. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I saw her. I didn't know she'd be here. What do you want me to do?" It was a small question, but it meant everything. He wasn't hiding, wasn't pretending. He was giving me the power to decide. I looked at Lisa, who hadn't noticed us yet, and then at Emma, laughing as she counted cookies. Noah was tugging at my sleeve, oblivious. This was my family, my life, and I wasn't going to let her take it from me again. "Nothing," I said. "Stay here. Help Emma. I'll handle it." I don't know what possessed me to walk over. Maybe it was the months of therapy, the hours spent reclaiming my strength. Maybe it was just exhaustion from carrying the weight of her shadow. I approached her, my voice steady. "Lisa?" She turned, startled, her eyes widening as she recognized me. "Oh, Sarah, right." "I don't want a scene," I said, keeping my tone calm. "But I need you to know something. What happened between you and David hurt my family. We're rebuilding, and we're stronger for it. I'd appreciate it if you'd keep your distance." She nodded, her face flushed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant. I'm just here for my nephew's school. I'll go." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I turned and walked back to my family, my heart lighter than it had been in months. David watched me approach, his eyes full of questions. "It's done," I said simply. He nodded, relief washing over his face, and went back to helping Emma. That night, after the kids were asleep, we sat on the couch, a blanket draped over us. "I'm proud of you," David said. "I don't know how you did that." "I did it for me, and for us. I needed to close that door." He pulled me close, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself melt into him. The scar was still there, but it didn't ache as much. The final piece. By winter, we were different. Not the couple we'd been before the affair, naive perhaps in our assumption that love alone was enough, but a new version, forged through pain and choice. We celebrated Christmas as a family, the kids tearing into presents while David and I exchanged quiet smiles over coffee. He gave me a necklace, a simple silver chain with a pendant shaped like a knot. "It's us," he said, tangled but strong. I wore it every day. In our last counseling session, Dr. Ellis asked, "What's changed for you both?" David went first. "I've learned to be honest, not just with Sarah, but with myself. I was running from my own fears, and I hurt the people I love most. I'll never stop working to be better." I took a breath. "I've learned that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. It's choosing to build something new instead of living in the ruins. I forgive David because I love him, but also because I love myself enough to want a life that's whole." Dr. Ellis smiled. "You've done the work. It's not over, but you've laid a foundation." A new beginning. The first snow of the season fell softly outside our living room window, blanketing the world in quiet. Inside, the house was alive with warmth. Emma and Noah sprawled on the rug, arguing over a board game, while David stoked the fireplace, his laughter mingling with their protests. I stood in the doorway, a mug of tea warming my hands, watching the scene unfold like a painting I'd feared I'd never see again. It had been over a year since that anonymous text shattered my world. A year of tears, of hard truths, of choosing to stay when leaving would have been easier. Forgiveness, I'd learned, wasn't a destination, but a journey. Some days I still felt the sting of David's betrayal, a fleeting shadow that passed when he'd catch my eye and smile, or when he'd leave a note on my pillow. "You're my home, Sarah. Always." The kids had healed in their own way. Emma, once guarded, now hugged David freely, her trust restored through his steady presence. Noah, too young to grasp the full weight of what happened, simply knew Daddy was back, reading him stories and building forts. They were our anchor, the reason I fought for this family, but I'd also fought for myself, for the woman who refused to let pain define her. That evening, after the kids were tucked in, David and I sat by the fire, the crackle of logs filling the silence. He reached for my hand, his thumb tracing the knot pendant I still wore. He said, "I was thinking maybe we could renew our vows this spring. Not a big thing, just us and the kids, maybe Mia. A way to start fresh." I considered it, the idea both tender and daunting. I said, "Maybe. But I don't need a ceremony to know we're in this. You show me every day." He smiled. his eyes soft. "I'll never stop showing you." I leaned into him, the warmth of his arm grounding me. Forgiveness hadn't erased the past, but it had given us something new. A marriage built on honesty, scars and all. I forgave David because love isn't perfect, but it's worth fighting for. Because our family deserved a chance to thrive. Because I deserved a life of joy, not resentment. As the snow fell, I looked at the man beside me, the kids sleeping upstairs, the home we'd rebuilt, and I knew, deep in my bones, that I had made the right choice. Our story wasn't over. It was just beginning again. Stronger, wiser, and more honest than before. We weren't the same people we'd been before, but we were better together. Tangled and tough, like the knot around my neck. And that was enough.
Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Sarah's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about finding herself again in the ruins of something she thought would last forever. If you've ever been broken, lied to, or forced to start over, know this: you are not alone, and your story still matters. Comment below if Sarah's journey touched something inside you. Let's talk. Let's be human. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story, because someone out there may need to hear it today. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay brave, stay real.